All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle two areas you are absolutely guaranteed to encounter in your nursing career and, of course, on the NCLEX, chronic illness and end-of-life care. My goal here is to really break down the core concepts you'll need to master. So here's our game plan. We'll start with what a chronic illness actually is and what your role as a nurse looks like. Then we'll dive into that transition to end-of-life care, talk about the challenges and the whole process of grief. And we'll wrap up with something super important, taking care of yourself, the caregiver. Okay, first things first, let's build the foundation. To really nail this topic for the NCLEX, you've got to have a super precise understanding of what makes an illness chronic and just how massive its impact really is. Just let that number sink in for a second. 129 million. That's how many people in the US are living with at least one chronic illness. It is a huge part of our population, which basically guarantees this is going to be a central part of your day-to-day nursing practice. For the NCLEX, this definition is everything. The key phrase you need to burn into your brain is long-term management, and the specific time frame is 3 months or longer. That's what separates a chronic condition from an acute one, and it's why these illnesses require such huge, ongoing adjustments in a patient's life. So this slide really gets into the reality of it. It's not just about taking pills, right? It's a whole life of constantly sticking to therapy, riding the waves of different phases, and just living with a cloud of uncertainty. And get this, one chronic condition can actually trigger others, like a domino effect. For us as nurses, that means our care plans have to be flexible and really, really supportive. Okay, pop quiz time. This is a classic NCLEX style question. Take a quick look at the options. Which one of these statements is actually true? And the correct answer is C. Chronic illnesses pop up in every single race and culture. This is a huge takeaway. They are a universal health challenge. They aren't just for the elderly or limited by how much money someone makes. And for your exam, definitely remember their prevalence is going up, not down. So, knowing how complex this all is, what is our role in managing these conditions? Well, it really demands a truly holistic approach. The main thing to get from this is that your role has so many layers. It's way more than just checking boxes and doing tasks. It's about having skilled, empathetic conversations, seeing the whole person, and being able to adapt your care as your patient goes through the ups and downs of their illness. It's a real balancing act between technical skill and just human connection. All right, here's another big picture question for your exam prep. As nurses, we really need to get the why behind these trends. So look at these options. What's the single biggest factor contributing to the rise in chronic conditions? Yep, the answer is B, obesity. Now, while all the other things can play a part, obesity is a primary risk factor for a ton of chronic illnesses. Think diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, you name it. For the NCLEX, this link is so important, especially for questions about patient education and preventative health. Okay, let's shift gears now to what is often the final part of a long journey with chronic illness. We're going to talk about the transition to end-of-life care, and we need to get crystal clear on two terms that people mix up all the time: palliative and hospice care. Okay, lean in for this one, because I can basically guarantee you'll see this on the NCLEX. You have got to know the difference. Palliative care can start at any time, even right at diagnosis while a patient is still getting treatments to cure them. The goal is all about quality of life. Hospice, on the other hand, is a specific program that begins after curative treatments have stopped. The focus shifts entirely to comfort and support. Know this distinction cold. All right, let's lock that in. Read the statement on the screen. Is this true or is it false? Think really carefully about the timing we just talked about. And the answer is true. The key thing here is that fundamental shift in focus. Palliative care is all about moving away from a mindset that's only about curing the disease to one that puts the patient's quality of life front and center, no matter where they are in their journey. Now let's get into the really tough parts of this work. Caring for terminally ill patients means walking through an ethical minefield and managing some incredibly difficult symptoms. This is a classic critical thinking question for the NCLEX. And listen, all of these are real issues, right? But what single factor here has had the most profound impact on the ethical questions we face at the end of life? And the answer is D. The central issue really comes down to technology. Modern medicine is incredible. It can keep the human body going longer than ever before. But that ability forces all of us, the medical team, the patient, the family, to face that tough question. What's the difference between being truly living versus just being kept alive? You absolutely 100% need to know this term for your exams and for your practice. Palliative sedation. It's a last resort medical option to relieve terrible symptoms that just won't go away. But the crucial distinction you have to remember is that its only goal is comfort. That makes it ethically and legally completely different from euthanasia. And of course, you can't talk about end-of-life care without talking about grief and loss. As nurses, our role is to support not just our patient, but their entire family unit as they go through this incredibly difficult time. So you're probably familiar with the Kubler-Ross framework: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But here is the NCLEX mastery tip. This is not a checklist. It's not a linear path. Not everyone goes through all of them, and people can bounce between them. Please think of it as a guide, not a rulebook. And finally, we're going to turn our attention to someone who is so often forgotten in this whole process, but whose well-being is absolutely essential. You, the nurse. I just want you to let that simple quote really land. This work means you are constantly exposed to loss. You are not a robot. It is going to affect you. Acknowledging your own grief and actively taking steps to manage it isn't a weakness. It is a professional necessity if you want to have a long, compassionate career. You know, when you boil it all down, what we've talked about today is about so much more than clinical facts for an exam. It's about profound human experiences. So as you move forward, I want to leave you with this question to carry with you into your practice. How can we get better at weaving these tough, compassionate conversations into every single stage of care, right from the very beginning?